Is this version of Daniel Jones just a fluke, or do the Colts have an elite quarterback on their hands? The big headline after the Colts-Broncos game on Sunday might be that strange call to let the Colts retake their field goal for the win. But however, in both of the Colts' wins, one thing keeps standing out: their quarterback spot, which a lot of people thought would be their biggest question mark heading into the season. Doug, you wrote a piece on athlonsports.com titled, "The Indianapolis Colts are setting all kinds of records with Daniel Jones at their quarterback."
I was as mystified as anyone. That's why I put a question mark in the headline.
Yeah, well, so what has stuck out to you about Danny Dimes in these first two games?
Well, my God, this was a guy who asked for his release last November from the Giants after they benched him for Tommy Cutlets DeVito. He gets on the Minnesota Vikings practice squad. He's making like $300,000 for the rest of the year. They bump him up to the active roster. He never plays a snap because Kevin O'Connell is busy resuscitating Sam Darnold's career. So Jones has to wait for someone to resuscitate his career. He signs the one-year deal with the Colts and Shane Steichen, of course, who got his job as the Colts head coach because he did all that great work with Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia as their OC. And now all of a sudden, whatever he got, because O'Connell is really good with increasing the confidence of a quarterback. And Jones, I mean, he was benched. His last press conference, you may remember this, he went up and apologized from a letter, like his mom made him do it. It was just the weirdest damn thing. For all intents and purposes, Daniel Jones was done as a starting NFL quarterback, except for the fact that Anthony Richardson couldn't read blitzes. In the preseason, I wrote a whole article about this, about how he got just demolished in that Ravens game. Finger injury. Steichen says, you know what? I'm more comfortable with Daniel Jones. And, Richardson, another high pick, 4th overall. Jones was 6th overall for the Giants back in 2019. You wind up in these situations like when Sam Darnold went to the Vikings last year and J.J. McCarthy was going to be the guy, first-round quarterback, and he misses his whole rookie season to a torn meniscus. You have that right veteran at the right time who's willing to take the right input from the right coach. And I think that's what we've seen with Daniel Jones and Steichen and the Colts. And yeah, week 1 against the Dolphins are a disaster. We all know this. But in the 29-28 game against the Broncos on Sunday, Broncos were the 4th best defense in DVOA. A lot of people had them set up as the best defense in the NFL coming into this season. No one really saw the Packers coming until it happened. Yeah. But when the Broncos blitzed Jones, he completed 16 passes and 25 attempts for 265 yards and a touchdown. 4th most passing yards against a blitz in a single game in the next-gen stats era, which goes back to 2016. Jones is now the 4th player in NFL history with at least 270 passing yards, a touchdown pass, and a rushing touchdown in each of his team's first 2 games of the season. Jack Kemp of the 1965 Bills, we had to go back a while, Cam Newton with the 2011 Panthers, Kyler Murray with the 2021 Arizona Cardinals. The Colts scored on all 10 of their first possessions this season. They're the only team in NFL history to not punt in their first 2 games of a season. If you said before the season that anyone would do this, any team would do this, you would not be saying the Colts. And with Jones, you watch the tape and it's like, okay, he's making all the throws. He's making all the reads. He's not frantic in the pocket. He's not throwing beyond his station with his arm talent. For whatever reason, and with some guys, Darnold, Geno Smith, some guys it just takes longer. But he's really hit a point in his development where, for whatever the reasons are, his confidence, his increasing awareness of his own mechanics, what he learned from O'Connell, what he learned from Steichen, and this is kind of an indictment of Brian Daboll, by the way, hello. This is where he is now as a quarterback. And, it's 2 weeks in. He's played one really bad defense and one really good one. We want to see what happens from here. But, yeah, this is definitely – it's a different Daniel Jones. It does not look like a fluke.
I get that it's a Daniel Jones. Like, the quarterback is always going to get the credit and the blame to varying degrees, and usually they don't deserve as much of either. But I really want to shout out the supporting cast here, because on that offense, the offensive line has been absolutely kicking ass. Jonathan Taylor had like 200 yards of total offense on Sunday, and that makes a huge difference in building confidence for your quarterback when you know you have a 3-down playmaker like that who's going to make plays happen. Obviously, there were some really bad blown coverages and missed assignments that led to some big plays there. But Jonathan Taylor looked like the best version of him we've ever seen. I think that receiving core doesn't get enough credit. I think the three receivers with Pittman and Josh Downs and Alec Pierce, I think, they're so great. We talk about every NFL team kind of wants to build their receiver room like a basketball team, where you have a point guard and you have a stretch four and you have a big and you have a slasher and you have a shooting guard that can just spot up and catch and shoot anywhere. You want these different roles and skill sets, and I feel like this group of Colts receivers does that so well, where you've got Michael Pittman Jr., who's kind of got the big physical frame, and he can out-muscle guys and make those, clutch catches in the red zone and on, moving the chains and those third down situations. You got field stretcher Alec Pierce, who isn't catching the ball unless it's 65 yards down the field, but he is definitely catching that
He's
ball.
the most underrated vertical receiver in the NFL. I've been saying that for like 3 years.
It's crazy, man. I loved him coming out of Cincinnati. I thought he was a steal for them. But then you got Josh Downs, who's the slot separator, the guy who's going to get open no matter what and get you a few yards after the catch. And I still don't think they've really tapped into what A.D. Mitchell brings to the table as an explosive guy. I know he's working on route running. There's a lot to be refined there, but I still feel like they've got a ton of potential there. And oh, by the way, Tyler Warren fell to them at the 14th overall pick, which was just the perfect fit. We talked about it so much leading up to that draft, Doug. But man, he fell right into their lap, and Shane Steichen is using him right away as well as any tight end is being used in the NFL. He's having such a huge impact. And again, he was a number 5 overall player on my board at athlonsports.com. And so getting that guy at 14 and getting a guy who, for that offense in particular, we knew it was going to be run first. We knew it was going to be predicated on physicality. And Tyler Warren blocks his ass off and is so physical and tough at the point of attack. He does so many things so well that I just think that everything is there for Daniel Jones to just be like, wait, all I have to do is show up and just like not make any back-breaking mistakes and just put the ball where it needs to go. And I'm going to have time to do it. And I'm going to have playmakers on the other end that are going to do their jobs. I'm going to have a scheme that doesn't set me up to fail and kind of helps me out and puts me in a position to be successful. I think those 2 wins have been great team wins, particularly for the offense. The defense has some things to work out, but that offense is playing like such a cohesive unit that I feel like, I'm not trying to diminish what Daniel Jones is doing, but as a quarterback, that's the ideal situation you want, where you just have to show up, do what you do well. You don't have to play outside of yourself, and you can just kind of show up, bring what you bring to the table, and just don't mess anything up, and you're going to win.
Warren has made a massive fundamental difference in just 2 games. And yes, Steichen's using him a lot, but he's using it 120 snaps so far, using him all over the place. I'm looking at my PFF numbers, 12% in the outside slot, mostly tight, aligned to the formation. My friend Brett Coleman put up a post today where he was running like a tight end leak out of the backfield. So he's become that joker in the Jimmy Graham, Travis. I'm not comparing him to Jimmy Graham and Travis Kelce, but they're already putting him in that role. They're not giving him like with multi-position guys in the NFL. They come into the NFL. We'll start with the one thing. Vic Fangio did this with Cooper DeJean last year with the Eagles. We'll teach them the one thing, then the second thing. They came in with Tyler Warren this year and they said, okay, here's the whole playbook. Let's go. So he's become a major part of that. And yes, everything around him is good. But everything around Anthony Richardson was good. Everything around Trey Lance was good. Everything around a lot of quarterbacks is good. And, sometimes
you do still have to do your part.
You do still have to do your job. So, yeah, I think this Daniel Jones thing is real. Will he have old Daniel Jones moments? Sure. But, I think he's in the right system. And it's, Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, X number of quarterbacks through time. Guys figure it out later in their careers and off they go.
This team reminds me a little bit of last year's team that got off to a really hard start and started 2-0 and finished the season 5-12. The New Orleans Saints, whose offense, those first 2 weeks looked amazing. Mm-hmm. So obviously different teams. How do you think this stacks up to a team like that? Obviously the Saints last year had big injury issues. So, and where do you project the Colts going from here? Do you think they're actually legit, they'll stick around in a weak AFC South, or do you see them falling off?
For me, I think with Lou Anarumo getting control of that defense, they were very, very static before. Lou's going to do some different stuff, and he's got veterans who can hold it together. You have, as Luke posited, Jonathan Taylor, I think the most underrated running back in the NFL today. Above average offensive line, all those targets. If Jones does fail in that, and he hasn't so far, and I've seen a lot of different things, I think if you fail in that, your career is over. You know, is he going to wind up with a huge contract next year like Sam Darnold last year? You know, is it that kind of reclamation story? I don't know. But this is a Daniel Jones I've never seen. And studying the mechanics and the throws and the reads and all that, it's not a situation where he's creating contested catches with the fact that he doesn't know where the ball needs to go. You know, he's doing his part. And as long as that's the case, and sometimes you just need confidence. And, you know, Dave Gettleman selected Jones 6th overall in the draft because he loved how Jones performed in Senior Bowl practice. I watched Jones coming out of Duke. I thought he had third-round tape. Luke and I discussed this at the time. Luke and I have been together, working together for a long time in some different places. So sometimes it just takes a while, but I don't see this falling off. I mean, yeah, if you do it against the Dolphins, but if you do it against this Broncos defense, and he was doing it over and over under some really difficult circumstances, against the blitz, tight window throws, not a lot of separation, he still made it happen.
I think when we're talking about team success, I think the fact that they play in the AFC South, as you mentioned, Johnny, I think helps them immensely. I think it's going to be easier for them, similar to the NFC South, the way that's been the last few years, where it's going to be easier for them to win that division than it would be for them to make the playoffs as a wild card. I think that's definitely the case for them, where you look in the rest of Jacksonville looks just disjointed in a lot of ways. Houston, I feel like, has a lot of potential, but injuries are going to be a huge thing, and that offensive line is still god-awful, and they traded away Laramie Tunsil and made it worse somehow. I just don't understand how you do that to a young quarterback who's trying to develop in C.J. Stroud. And then the Titans, again, you know, Cam Ward is going to be special, but I think it's going to take a while. But there's just all that to say, there's nobody else in the AFC South that scares me. And so if you're telling me that I'm going to get 60 to 75% of this version of the Colts that we've seen through these first 2 weeks of the season at some degree, you know, over the rest of the season, I think they've got a shot to win a pretty weak division, unless one of those other teams makes some big changes and looks different than we've seen the last couple of weeks. But I don't see why not.
And God bless Gus Bradley. I know Gus from his time in Seattle. Wonderful guy. But you cannot play that country cover 3 75% of the time anymore. Modern offenses will rip you apart. Lou Anarumo knows this. The defense will also be better with more variety. The offense will be better with more variety, because when you have who they had last year, I mean, there's only so much you can do. So Jones gives them, it's not just, he's not going to be dragged along for the ride. He does give them some juice that they would not have with other league average to slightly better quarterbacks. Is he a top 5 quarterback in the league? I don't think he'll ever be that, but he doesn't need to be.
So what do you think? Are the Colts legit? Let us know in the comments below.